Well, welcome here again. Oh, gosh. What are the humans doing?
Do you think you're ready? Can you handle the truth? Or are you in denial and demanding more proof? They demonstrate in real time how they're spinning you lies, but no one pays attention, no one opens their eyes. They walk around like zombies with their head in the mobiles, signaling their virtues with a pic on their profile, yeah. Signaling their virtues with a pic on their profile. So if you think you're ready and you don't need more proof, conspiracy deniers are denying the truth. They fabricate our problems and pretend to provide the best solution, but we all know they lie. They lied about the weapons and he lied about health. They lied about the fact that they're transferring the wealth. You should really notice how they're pushing the fear. Keep everybody terrified and not thinking clear. Yeah. Everybody's not thinking clear. Keep everybody terrified. Yeah, can nothing. Keep everybody terrified and not thinking clear. When you do, you realize that this is their trick. It's getting really stupid now, they're taking the mic. Said, do you think you're ready? Can you handle the truth? Or are you in denial and demanding more proof? They demonstrate in real time how they're spinning you lies, but no one pays attention, no one opens their eyes. They walk around like zombies with their head in the mobiles, signaling their virtues with a pic on their profile, yeah. Signaling their virtues on their profile. Hey.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Sasquatch Shills for Sasquatch Shills, so you don't have to. And that's what we do here. We talk about people doing other things on other channels, and that's why we talk about it, because how else are you going to learn other than from your other creators? See, YouTube's got this whole creator studio over there, and I'm convinced that it is designed to make cookie cutter channels. So anytime I come across a channel that is not in any way associated with that bullshit at all, I always like to ring a bell on the way in and shine a light on the spot. So let me bring the man himself in here. This is the Divine Sorcerer. What's up, bud? What you want to tell everybody about your channel?
What's up, man? Actually, I'm just a regular paranormal investigator that has had a long journey in mythology, Christian Judaism, that ended up following the writings of King Solomon and becoming a sorcerer and mixing witchcraft with paranormal investigating.
Fantastic. All right, so I told you before, you have this amazing ability to go live just as I'm about at my 15th shot. So I don't think we've ever actually had a rational conversation that took place, because in just about every case, I was like, look, I'd like to talk to you, but now's just not the time, right? So
Right.
I have a little bit that I do before I get into anything else. It's a previous guest on the channel. His name is Captain Curmudgeon, and he does these little monologue intros on his videos. that I just think they tickle the living shit out of me just about every time. They're not always funny though, so keep that in mind. And then we're going to go through chat, and then we'll get on with everything else. All right, that's all. Got a myth on madness. It works. Might help if it wasn't muted.
Tversky District, Saratov Oblast, Russian Soviet Federative Socialist Republic, Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. Try fitting all that on an envelope. Wednesday, 12 April 1961, 10:55 a.m. local time. Anna Takhtarova, wife of the local forest ranger, her 5-year-old granddaughter Rita Nurskanova, and their brown spotted calf, whose name has sadly been lost to history, are on their way back home from a morning spent planting potatoes at the local agricultural collective because, yay, communism! When up ahead in the distance, they see a strange orange-skinned creature with a large white head struggling with what appears to be some sort of gigantic bed sheet. Anna and Rita start to slowly back away, and as they prepare to turn and flee, screaming for their lives, the creature notices them and begins wildly waving its arms, seemingly beckoning them to come forward, which they proceed to do. When they get close enough to be within earshot, they are satisfied that this is actually a man in an orange suit with a white helmet. The thing he was struggling with was a parachute, and though he can't yet be heard intelligibly by his discoverers, he does seem to be speaking Russian underneath that helmet. I just can't figure out what he means by these hand gestures. Oh, wait. I know. I've got it. I think he's asking us to help him remove his helmet, which little Rita then proceeds to do. And though Anna and Rita don't know it yet, they have just become historical figures, for they are the first 2 people ever to meet a space traveler. For the man they have just encountered is none other than Senior Lieutenant Yuri Gagarin of the Soviet Air Force, who has just completed history's first human space flight, as well as the first orbital flight and the first multi-orbital flight aboard the craft that will become known to history as Vostok 1. And the first words he spoke to these 2 random peasants were these. And this quote always makes me smile. "Don't be afraid. I am a Soviet citizen like you who has descended from space, and I must find a telephone to call Moscow." And he wasn't lying about the urgency of calling Moscow, for he had just landed 200 miles short of where he was supposed to land, and there were hundreds of recovery personnel at the intended landing site who by this time were starting to fear that there had been some terrible malfunction on re-entry and their cosmonaut was well and truly dead. But even in spite of the urgency of the situation, finding a telephone to call Moscow was going to be easier said than done, and extricating Yuri Gagarin from the clutches of the villagers for whom he was now a local hero, that was going to be no simple matter either. Before he knows it, he's being carried off to the mayor's house for an impromptu feast, presumably made up of borscht and vodka, because that's all you need for a Russian feast, right? Maybe a balalaika player and a couple of chessboards, and call it a party. But anyway, since it's April 12th, or Yuri's Night, as it is popularly known among space flight aficionados, I thought it would be fun to talk about some of the aspects of that story that you don't ever hear about, such as how the hell did the guy manage to escape from the vodka party and find a phone to call Moscow? Well, stay tuned, because the answer lies on the other side of this brief musical interlude.
That man tickles me absolutely every time. Every single time. Even when he's being absolutely serious. He reminds me of like a young Dennis Miller. Back when he used to do all the weird, vague references. In person, they're constant. Right? But like on the videos, he kind of tones it back so it doesn't come across quite so much, I guess. Hello, Ajot. Welcome to the show. All right, let me adjust this. Adjust this. You gotta love that, man. That's good. Did you do that yourself?
Yes.
That's fantastic, man. So, trip to the local winery. You got tanked at a place?
I didn't get tanked. They only give you like 5 ounces, but the wine was good. Like I could see me drinking a bottle or 2.
Fantastic. Let's run through chat right quick before we get too far afield. Okay. ATL gets the no. Wow, Mr. Samuel beat everybody. Mr. Samuel gets the gold. Kim maple syrup. That's Canadian syrup. Gets the silver. And ATL gets the bronze. You got to get up a little bit earlier next time, bro. Maybe you can get in here and get you a gold medal. We got Mama Gnome's joining the chat. That's awesome. Love to see her around. Says she helped her hubby change a tire today on a Jeep. I'm proud of you. I bet he needed all the help he could get too. No, I would. Melissa Stedman's joined the chat. Kat, good to see you. We got Snark and Sass Booby and Princess OPD. By the way, just so everybody knows, her cat is 18 years old. I'm not sure why it's important, but it is definitely an important issue. Ajot's in the chat. We got Belt Loop 29. Good to see you, bud. We got Samuel the Infamous. I'm going to try to get him in one of these shows here directly. YouTube Police. Awesome. We're actually getting blue lighted by the staff. Fantastic. New York Outcast is in here. It's good to see you, bud. Steve Harloha. Hello, Steve. How are you? Aloha, everyone. I'm sure I just destroyed that name, and I do apologize. We got Raven Shank. Good to see you, bud. Awesome. Okay, I think I've caught up with everybody. Grasshopper. Good to see you too. Awesome. Are we still? Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Awesome. Okay. So I have this playing in the background. We've got a little bit of stuff going on. I want you to tell me, you're sitting around in your normal everyday life, doing your wizardry things that you do, and you decide to pick up a camera and film some shit. What was that?
Everybody, like, the last, I don't know, 7-8 years, like, all I did was research and like fill this brain full of wonderful knowledge and did YouTube videos. And people thought that I never got out. Like, I was always a hermit. You know, didn't do nothing. So I decided one day that I was just going to suddenly make a video and put it out on YouTube so people would see that I do get out. I'm not a vampire. I mean, I am a vampire, but, you know, kind of hide away from the population. I don't know. People just, I'm leery of people, humankind. I'm iffy with them. I'd rather spend my time with aliens and demons and ghosts and things that I relate to. Humans just are complicated and scary.
Right. It's much easier to sit around silently in a corner than it is to interact in a conversation. Words are scary and dangerous. It can get you in trouble.
Yes, definitely.
So you decided to make yourself a video. Where were you at that point? I've got your what I believe to be your first publicly available uploaded video to YouTube. Loaded up for my paleontology section where I go and dig up the earliest video somebody's got. And we'll get to that in just a minute. We got to pull down another 4 minutes before we get there because that's the way that works. Janica, welcome to the show. Freeside, appreciate you coming. Words get you in trouble every week. Yeah, that's because you keep saying them online. You know, if you just say them in a closet like a normal person, you'd be okay. I have the same problem. Although I haven't really had a whole lot of trouble, although I have attracted the attention of some of the trollier masses. They're just jealous. Okay, cool. You're already modded up. So the reason I mod my guests, and it might seem obvious after the fact, but a lot of people don't get it coming in. The reason I mod my guests is just about everybody out there who's got more than 500 people under their belt has attracted at least one or two diehard hate watchers. And you know who they are, and I might not. So should they show up to start trouble, you can do some out before I even have to know anything about it. And I'll go unblock them next week, and they can hate me for the rest of their lives. I will thrive on it. Let my haters be my motivators. So you uploaded a video to YouTube. The first one that I have, the earliest one I see, is what appears to be a radio interview on, what do you remember the station? I can look it up.
Yeah, it was 710 radio in Denver when I first moved to Denver, Colorado, and shortly after starting Sprad Paranormal. My very first case actually was the lead biker of a of a motorcycle group named Coat of Arms, Nitro. He was, now mind you, this guy's like a big guy, over 250 pounds at the time. You know, he wasn't a small guy, and he was getting drug off his bed and into the closet. And so, of course, they contacted me. And as I worked with them, they were like, hey, I want to take you up here to Denver to the radio station. I didn't know we were going there. He just said he wanted to take me for a ride. But we get to this radio station. Here it's this radio station where like you can sit around, smoke pot, and chill out. People, you know, they wanted to interview me because the radio announcer's girlfriend was like really into paranormal investigating and stuff. So that was like my first big thing. I recorded it and put it on.
That is super cool. That is super neat. You know, when I first started my channel, I had a really messed up mic. And so I was using these tricks to amp up the mic enough to be heard in like a show. And I didn't realize that my mic was actually broken because it was the only one I'd ever messed with, right? So when I got a real mic, I started getting these comments in my comment section talking about, you were the midnight disc jockey on WKLM in Wisconsin in the mid-90s, right? And I'm like, no, sir, I've never worked in radio. And then, like, the very next day, somebody else is like, you worked the 2 a.m. show for such and such a radio station. And I'm like, no, but I'm starting to feel like I might have missed a lick. Like, maybe that's something I should have looked into way earlier.
See the radio announcer style.
Right. Right. I mean, there's a few things, and I do a few impressions too, but you know, mostly it's just the ability to sit and have a decent conversation with somebody without, you know, burning the place down. I don't know why that's such a common response nowadays. People get a little upset in their fifis and they just, well, they take their ball and they go home. Okay, so on that point, how much smoke have you had to deal with from the YouTube crowd? Did they give you a bunch of shit, or has it been fairly even-handed?
Well, let me think. When I was into the Christianity phase, shortly after getting that case, which drove me into Christianity, well, the case before that actually had me pondering, but that case there sealed the deal. I got into Christianity and ended up ultimately becoming a pastor and whatnot, and that's how I got into YouTube. I got lost on the subject. I'm high.
It's okay, man. I once interviewed a guy that was in a car on his lunch break, and no joke, I once interviewed a deaf man, a deaf Bigfoot hunter at that, if you want to get weirder. And he got real mad at me because I asked him, I said, suppose you're out there looking for Bigfoot and you find a pixie. And he thought I was picking on him, but I was serious. Like, what if you find something that doesn't match your assumption? Like, you assume you're going to find Bigfoot. Suppose you found a leprechaun, pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, the whole nine. do you call the same people, or is it a different group of people?
That's a logical question.
I think it's a logical, perfect. He got a little upset with me. He didn't appreciate it. Hey, Cammed Up Caveman, Guns and Barbecue. Good to see y'all. Appreciate y'all coming by. Ajot's super modding over here tonight. She's got a big old S on her chest. Usually she's sitting where you're sitting and she's acting like my stress animal.
Great job,
my stress YouTuber. Yeah, that's the way that works. All right. So I got this bit that I do, right? And when I started YouTube, the whole purpose of the show was to meet other YouTubers and creators, because damn it, there's nothing more interesting than a YouTuber when it comes down to it. So, oh, wow. That was perfectly timed. That's cool. Let's see. This was the Sprad Paranormals interview you were talking about.
Yep.
This is your very first upload to your channel. And ladies and gentlemen, when he was talking about being in it for a while, he's not even joking. This one was what, like 8 years ago? Yeah, 8 years ago. So it's been a minute. Well, how long before that did you make your channel?
I probably made my channel about 4 years before that.
So Oh boy, your channel was established back right after the swap of numbers. In the early days of YouTube's, everybody got a number. They didn't get it. You couldn't name your channel. And then after they let you name it, I've got one viewer who still hasn't changed their names from the number. She's got like a 15 or 13-year-old channel or something.
Oh, damn.
Okay, let me do the bit because I'm getting sidetracked again.
Yep.
Where's it at? There's so many things. So many things.
You know about cars? Yes, I'm a paleontologist.
Oh, it's okay. There's dynamite in this bag too. I am a paleontologist.
I'm a paleontologist.
Paleontologists study really old stuff.
Like crackers.
Because bad movies are funny.
Absolutely, they are. If anybody's curious, that's from Deary Off the Wall. You can find it on Amazon. I had nothing to do with it, but I strongly advise you to go save that turtle. You'll understand if you ever watch the movie. They love it when I do this. That man creeps me out. He's got teeth on his teeth. It's really weird.
Oh, wow.
All right, so you got kidnapped by a biker, drugged to a radio station. Did they drug you before they started questioning you, or they just throw you to the sharks out there?
No, we got up there and we started talking. Everything was cool. And I met the crew and whatnot. And they were like, "Hey man, come smoke." And me being the stoner I am, I was like, "Yeah, man." So we sat there and we smoked, and I just told them how I built Sprad, and if they needed help. Matter of fact, they're shading right there. But if they needed help, then give me a call. And that was pretty much the getting my business out there, Sprad out there.
That's cool. I've never been.
He's not a small guy, man. Imagine.
No, he's not.
He's getting drug off your bed and into the closet by something you can't see. Like, it scared the shit out of him.
Absolutely. One of the reasons I believe in a certain amount of paranormal activity is derived directly from a situation similar to that, where someone that terrifies me on a personal level, and I'm a big boy, but he terrifies me on a personal level, but this man won't hardly go into a dark room alone in certain places. You know what I mean? He's just not doing that. That's not a thing you'll catch him doing. He won't say nothing about it. It's not obvious, but if you pay attention, that man is never alone unless he's in his own home. Otherwise, he's got a sidekick sitting right next to him. And if it gets dark, sidekick goes out front immediately. Always. So how long did this interview go on, and what kind of stuff did you cover? Was it like your experiences or the experiences you've been told about?
It went on. I was probably there for about an hour or so. At that time, I only had like 4, maybe 5 cases under my belt at the time. So we went through them and why I got into doing what I'm doing. Basically, like I said back then, and it still holds true today, to help the community. Like, because I understand this stuff, because I'm attracted to this stuff. What scares normal people does not scare me. As you can tell, I'm covered in death. Like, death is not the end. I know a different version of death. I died once. Like, death is not scary to me. It's just another beginning. But when you start playing with these energies, these unknown energies, and you start manifesting these things, you can get into a lot of trouble, and people don't understand that. There's many different galaxies and many different universes and like many different things out there. We're not alone.
I can tell you what my mom told me. She said, specifically about hearing discarnate voices. Never admit you hear them. And even if you do, never consort with them, because whether they are ghosts, goblins, ghoulies, interdimensional elves, spirits, aliens, whatever they are, they're not human, and you cannot trust them ever. You get what I'm saying, though. They are such an alien concept that
Right.
even if they did follow through with what the agreement was, it would be by their understanding of it, not yours.
There's always a trick.
Right.
There's always another point to it.
So the best bet was just to skip it at the beginning.
As like, you know, as I show on my channel, you know, because I am a sorcerer, because I delve into these things, I conjure these things up. You can do it, and you can do it safely if you understand the mechanics, if you understand the energies and what you're doing. Like, it can be done safely. It's just people don't do it safely. They just open portals and let them open, and then things happen. You know? Or they manifest something without knowing they manifested it, and then, you know, it ends up becoming a problem. Like I tell people, you can, depending on your mind state, your emotional state, you can be cooking and have candles lit for like a dinner or something, you know, and be sitting there singing, and you can manifest something just from doing that. You're doing witchcraft and you don't know you're doing it. Like, these things happen every day, and people just don't understand it. It's unusual, weird people like me that don't understand it, that aren't afraid to go out there and deal with it. You know,
there's a reason we put the word para at the beginning of it, because it's not abnormal, it's not unnormal, it's something normal in addition to normal, something we don't understand. We can't really, I personally believe we can't really conceive of the reality of it. And so we fall back on repeatable experiment being the only derivative source of information. But the fact is that anecdotal evidence has existed for millennia that something else is also taking place. That while the physical realm is measurable, it is not immutable. Things change, which seems to be the only thing that actually stays the same.
That's a hermetic principle. It's the principle of vibration. Everything moves. Nothing stays the same. It all changes. And see, as a hermetics teacher, we do understand. Some of us do understand these things, what they are, and what even we are. A lot of people don't understand. This thing that we drive, this flesh suit, is a vessel. That's all it is. It's a flesh suit. You live 70, 80, 90 years, and you're done. Your vessel's done. That little spark that, you know, runs our brain and our heart and like our central nervous system, that spark is our soul. Without this vessel, we still are that spark. You cannot create energy and you cannot destroy energy. And that's what we ultimately are. We are a form of energy from a higher being. All of us, every single one of us. All right. So knowing that, when you die, you're not ending your life. You're not going to some hell. You're not being tortured. You're just moving on to another aspect, to another realm, to a higher consciousness. And you're being, whether you want to call it reincarnation, rebirth, whatever, you're going through your next journey. So when you understand that you're that energy, that spark, and the energy, you know, the world is electromagnetic. We play with energy all the time. That's what we are. It's just this suit enables us.
We have a resident alien in the chat, Janica. She said the universe is always on time.
It is. It definitely is.
And so that's one of the things that I want to point out to most of our more scientifically based friends. What do you do when your measurements come up wrong? If you've done an experiment 2 million times, then it's been the same every single time. And that's the repeatability of science. And then one time it's wrong. And then another time it's wrong. Is it wrong, or has something changed temporarily?
I would say something changed temporarily. You're getting the same, if you're getting the same reading and then you get sudden off readings, I would say like maybe a piece of dust entered the.
So the methods of science are directly derived to eliminate that type of temporary change, a mutable change in the circumstance. So things that exist beyond the scientific method would exist and you'd have no clue they were there simply by you, because you would filter it out because it's an aberrancy. It's outside the curve, so to speak. So we chop off the top and the bottom of all of our graphs because we don't know what happened there. We don't know this experiment no more, right? And I don't know if that's I understand to build an arrangement of information, you have to build it up from something. So you have to have something really to base it on. And in a lot of cases, that's things like gravity and the forces of acceleration and light speed. But these things don't have a proper explanation, in my opinion, either, because show me a cup of gravity, bro. Like, just go get me a scoop of it, bring it over here so we can measure it, and we can check it out and see what it is. You can't do it. Can't nobody do it. We can't even form an experiment to try to do that. You know? So do we really understand it? No, not at all. They've got a good story that sticks together pretty well and hasn't been proven completely wrong yet. So far, everything that goes up comes down is really all we can say. So, I mean, the idea that there's things that people can perceive as individuals that can't be discerned by science is not beyond the pale, in my opinion. I mean, our ancients could not possibly have been as dumb as people think they were, right? I don't care how many mushrooms they ate.
And they didn't share?
They did share amongst the other shaman. Can you imagine how it was when two tribes got together and the two shamans got to compare notes? Here, try some of this. Man, right? Out of this world. I got something that I'll try this. So where do you see this going? You do investigations and stuff. Do you do that by appointment, or like, are you in the yellow pages? Like, how does that go down?
No, I
website or something.
I do get calls. Like the last call I got was probably about 6 months ago. This little girl was seeing two hooded figures, and she refused to sleep in her room. And so after a few weeks, mom started to see the figures, and that's when they called me, and I went in and I used basic ghost hunting tools, your EMF detector, your EVP recorder, couple REM pods and whatnot, used my tarot cards. Ultimately, the two hooded figures were being brought in by a mirror. There's two mirrors catty corner.
Right.
I dealt with them, but usually I set up places to go. Like, I'll go do graveyards, and I'll do haunted places in like Pennsylvania. Like, I have a trip coming up for Lancaster. I'm going to be doing a theater and a motel. So.
Oh, that's cool. You have to hit me up during or after that. We might do a dual live stream. I forgot to tell you. There's a button you can click to live stream this episode, but I forgot to tell you. Remember, I sat there and pointed at you, sat there with a blank look on my face, and went, "I don't know, I forgot." But
I shared your link all over my media site, so it's all good.
Yeah, but I'm trying to make this part of the system. It's a step-by-step thing to make these things happen. When you miss a step, it breaks down several others. Well, welcome to Sasquatch Shills, where the technical issues are part of the show. Hey, John Denicola, welcome to the show, bud. Isabella Live 2.0. It's good to see you. You got a lot to say, man. If you ever get a chance to sit and talk with him backstage, do it backstage, because his sound equipment's always janky as all get out, but he's always a ton of fun. If you can get over the fact that he's beating up his mic all the way through it. No, and here's the thing. He's really hard to follow, not because he's not making sense, but because he goes through part of an idea and then picks up part of a different idea and then finishes the previous idea and then finishes the second one while picking up a third one. And that's the way the conversation goes. I have a buddy of mine talks just like that, and I'm able to sit and follow along and get the fact that he's having 3 conversations, but they're all with you. If you can't keep track of it, that's on you, man.
I couldn't. I couldn't. I can't even multitask. So yeah, I probably couldn't.
He says it's because time is not real.
Time is an illusion. Right.
If you've ever heard him talk, I can totally believe he's an out of sync reality somehow, like not quite in sync with the rest of us. Because, like I said, I got a buddy of mine talks just like him. He does the same kind of broken conceptual, like his sentences are all related and they're all part of the same conversation, but they're not quite in line like they're supposed to be.
Right.
So, yeah, it's wild. But once you get the hang of it, he's not hard to follow.
Right.
Yeah, dude. Oh, he's an interesting fellow. All right, so what do you got planned for your future as far as the whole investigations part of this? You're doing a hotel and a theater. Beyond that, do you see it going into like the Annabelle personnel type deal where you do private investigations for folks, or you could always try the Yellow Pages.
Right now, Sprad Paranormals teamed up with the Academy of Sorcery because I went to the Academy of Sorcery to learn sorcery. We actually partnered with them to do paranormal and witchcraft. That's why I said I'm bringing a different style to paranormal investigating. Most people are like, "Oh, we're going to go ghost hunting." I'm the type of person. I'm a lazy stoner, man. I'm not into going and hunting anything. You know what I mean?
We're not going to eat it.
Right. I would rather just set my candles up, set my altar up, get my spices, and do my thing and bring them to me. Show people that, look, this is very real, and this is how you do it. It's not to be nothing afraid of. If you know what you're doing, if you do it responsibly, it's like drinking. Drink responsibly, right? Nothing happens. Just wake up in the morning.
Hey, Jonathan, welcome to the show, bud. Good to see you.
It's the same way, and that's what I was telling Brian from the Academy. Nobody is doing that. They're all ghost hunting these things, going in and getting scary. It's all for views and money, and that's something I don't want. I don't do this for views. I don't do it for popularity. I don't do it. As you can see, I've been on for 10 years and still got a low sub count because subs and donations and all, that's just not my thing. My thing is showing people what I've learned over my journey, helping the community, and just growing like-minded people that want to learn this stuff to get out there. We're not being burnt no more. Get out there and learn this stuff, man. You know what I mean? Like, the time of putting us to a pole and lighting us on fire because God, we're doing witchcraft, it's over. It's over. Let's do it.
I hear you, buddy. All right, so I just popped up a video. It says something about let's see, my experiment of befriending the crows.
Yes.
All right, so talk to me about these crows, bro. You pulling some Disney princess vibes over there? Is that what I'm hearing?
I mean,
do you want to build a snowman?
It's fascinating, man. Really, it is. And the more I got into hermeneutics, biochemistry, physics, astrology, all that alchemy, I learned to do a lot of shadow work on myself, open my chakras, get my Zen going. And within doing that, I was like, all right, well, now that my chakras are in line, I'm jumping on all these synchronicities, things are happening, life is all right now. I want to try something new. So I was like, I'm going to try to communicate with these birds, you know what I mean? And it went really well. It still goes really well. They come by and they let me know they're out of food and they want food. They bring me nice shiny things. Like, we established a connection.
There you go. We had these birds out at Pops. These little, we called them cowbirds. I never was quite certain what they are. I think they're martins. I suppose there's a bunch of them. There's always a big crowd of them. But I came to a truce with these guys, right? Like, they were posted up in this oak tree that had a hollow spot like 30 foot up in it, and they would come through every year and they nest up in that thing. You showed up at the house, you had something like, oh man, you having like a thing of sunflower seeds. They knew what a pack of sunflower seeds looked like, and they would aggressively go after that pack of sunflower seeds, and they would go get them, and they'd start by just dive bombing your ass. And so it became kind of part of the program. When you got out of the truck, you'd sprint to the door, because there's 30 of them, 40 of them. I mean, it's terrifying. And eventually I decided eventually I got me a piece of a cane pole, and I stopped running to the door. But every time they'd come at me, I'd whip them with that damn cane pole. It wouldn't hurt them. The shit out of them, you know. It's just the whipping part of it. They'd hear it crunch across their feathers, and they learned to stay, you know, a good 5-6 feet away from you. And after that, I didn't have a problem feeding them. They're pretty cozy once they stop trying to actually take your sunglasses away from you and stuff.
Yeah, they just wanted to look cool too, man.
I think they were going for my eyes.
You think?
Personally, I do. Like I said, they were nesting in a tree that I could reach and touch from my front porch. So I feel like they felt like we were intruding.
They're spying.
But the fact that I could knock them out of the air and would let them fly away instead of trying to attack them, and only hit them when they came at me, eventually sunk into their little bird brains. After that, and never had to deal with that again. Never had to deal with it again.
Oh, wow.
Up until we cut that tree down. Wasn't a problem.
They are.
They really are. And some of them are extremely intelligent. Emu are not one of those. They're not bright. And they're kind of aggressive under certain circumstances. They're very terrifying. I mean, imagine a chicken that can take you in a wrestling match.
That's a big chicken.
That's a big chicken, bro.
I'm a pretty big guy. That's a big chicken.
See, I went hunting one time down here in Georgia back in I guess it was 99 or so, 98, somewhere around in there. And I was sitting in my stand waiting for the little deer to come out, and a troop of turkeys wandered out into the field in front of me with something else that at first I could not conceive of what it might have been. I stared at that thing for a good few minutes before my brain finally put together, that's an emu. That is an emu. And I had to look around and make sure I hadn't been teleported to Australia, because okay. So why is there an emu in Middle Georgia? Well, back in the late 70s, a bunch of people tried to make emu farms. When I think it was Hurricane Helen come through, it trashed all of them, or they released them. So there may be a small breeding population of emu in Georgia.
Oh, wow.
I'm not 100% on that, but there was at least one for sure. And he was hanging out with turkeys, which makes sense to me.
Huh.
But I bring that up because it's kind of like the concept of having like a poltergeist situation where things are moving around, but there's no actual visuals, right? You're not seeing something. There's no shadow people, none of that. Maybe some dimming lights and whatnot, but not the visual aspect of it.
Right.
If we don't know how to interpret the visual aspects of what we see, wouldn't it be like me seeing that emu and not being able to identify what it was because I'm not in Australia? And my brain just didn't go to emu, even though it was obviously an emu in front of me. I thought ostrich, rhea, that is the biggest turkey I've ever seen. No, that's an emu. But it was the last place my brain landed, almost in distress, because I just sat there and stared at it for the longest time, just couldn't make heads or tails out of it until it was so right in front of me and obvious. I mean, I could have thrown it a rock and hit it, but I didn't have any idea if it was emu season or not.
Yeah, they're not native to that area, so I can see
Exactly. No, later on, it was like, why didn't you shoot it? But I'm sorry, I couldn't even really conceive of an emu being in Georgia in the first place. How am I supposed to determine whether or not it's legal to shoot it? I was already very confused, and it came out of nowhere, and it had these buddies, and I don't know. I just didn't think to shoot it. It was hunting deer. I can't shoot the turkeys, and I didn't want to get picked up for having missed an emu. Right? Could you imagine the game warden picking your ass up and being like, I saw you shooting at those turkeys. Did you see the emu? The emu. Yes, I was shooting at an emu. Likely story. You been drinking?
Are you smoking that stuff again?
Absolutely. But all I'm saying is, like, if you saw something from another dimension or something from another reality or something from the future or the past, how would you react to it? How would you recognize it for being that in order to interact with it, right?
Well, I mean, I don't know.
Hey, Brandon.
It's all, you know, people get scared of things they can't comprehend. Things they're not familiar with. Right off the bat, that scares people. Not everybody. People like me, we get intrigued and we're like, all right, man, do it again. Show me that shit again.
It's like the monkey in the experiment, right? They hooked him to an electrode that'd make him orgasm every time he pushed a button, and they did it to a woman. The male pushed the button until he died. The female pushed the button until she died, but she also ate some. She didn't just die. She seemed to do it out of boredom, whereas the male was like, ooh, 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 ooh. I'd probably do the same thing. And I'm supposedly a higher form of life. Supposedly.
Not
no, primates are not legal at all to own in Georgia. In fact, I'm pretty sure that one of the reasons you can own one in Florida is because we don't even allow private businesses to own primates without like heavy licensing.
Oh wow!
Because I mean, I know in Florida you can have anything. Like, they don't seem to care. Whatever.
It's Florida.
Except land snails. Apparently, they're having a problem with African land snails. I say cocoa.
Florida.
Yeah, Florida. Oh, wow. Well, Florida. Listen. Florida is ground zero for the biggest ecological disaster since the American chestnut apocalypse. Because it's such a warm environment. It's so much like India and South America and South Pacific Islands and South Atlantic Islands and all these other places that all of these really rare, amazing animals can live just fine, just fine out there. But each one of these layers of animals creates another layer of competition that the native species can't deal with. And so you've got things like snakeheads and boa constrictors and anacondas, and right next to things like that were never intended to be in the same ballyhoo. Like right. There are species that are only found on Snake Island that are loose in Florida. These are some of the most deadly vipers on Earth. Now, there may be only a few dozen of them right now, and only in one particular county. But yeah,
that can change.
Right. You give that a minute. What was it Jeff Goldblum said? Life finds a way.
Right. Yeah, that can spiral out of control quick.
Real quick. But what gets me is the layers there. Back pre-Columbian, there was a huge population of javelinas east of the Mississippi. The early settlers talked about the overabundance of javelinas, partly because of the displacement of Native Americans ahead of them through, disease and lack of inoculation. So the animals that had been hunted like manageably for thousands of years were suddenly not hunted at all for a few years. The population exploded. The disease took took hold. The starvation factor took hold. The natural landscape was no longer being managed by the natives the way it had been managed before, and all of the scrub grew up, and it became impossible and impenetrable to get through some of the areas of the forest that the javelinas used, because they're not pigs. You know, they're not. They kind of look like pigs. If you cook them, they taste like pigs. They live in the same general area of pigs, but they're not pigs. They're like giant freaking hamsters or something. I don't know. They're different. They're not the same thing. But you take one python who eats one of these things every, 6 months, every 2 weeks or whatever, and suddenly the javelina population is not nearly the issue it used to be. Same thing goes when you're hunting. You get one family that goes, oh, javelinas are pretty dumb and they always return to the same spot. Well, they don't anymore. And that's how that works.
Right.
Yeah, no, Florida is actually a huge under sand karst formation, a ginormous like reef that got covered in sand at some point. And so most of the actual growth, like the living soil that exists on top of Florida, washed out of the butthole of Georgia. Right. It's straight up the byproduct of like the Kissimmee River, the Swanee, and a dozen other rivers that empty into the Okefenokee from all over Georgia. So essentially Florida is the overburden of what the Appalachian was. Right? Like straight out that way. So there's like it's chock full of sinkholes, crystal springs, all kinds of wacky stuff. There's places, if I'm not mistaken, there's a hot spring in Florida, which really baffles me because it doesn't seem like there should be. But there's one in Georgia too. It's not even that far away, which also baffles me because that doesn't seem right either. I don't know.
Jenka says python hunting is big in Florida. It is. It really is. Snake hunting, period.
Liquefaction's an issue. It's called a boar. They have horns, and everything it is a beast. Florida is a huge reef. Yeah, no, you're not wrong. It's all right. If the sea level dropped another 300 meters, the Great Barrier Reef would do something very similar to what Florida has done now, right? The area of that reef is so ginormous that it has its own freshwater springs and stuff, right? So something just went wrong. That's not right. That's not right at all. Hold up. All right. That's the next bit. No, that's the next bit. Stop it. I'm a professional. You can believe that shit if you want to. Listen, you know what you've done? You've managed to do a show, buddy. I appreciate it. You're actually punctual, and I'll give you a 5-star review on Yelp. Might even send you a fruit basket.
I like fruit.
All right, so here's the way this goes, right? So I'm going to do this little play out. I'm going to like pop you up. You can have your say before you go, and then I do a little play out. But that's not the end of the show. I've got another bit that's all about wolves. If you're not familiar, there were a series of wolf attacks back during the 14, 15, up to 1700s that just seem to boggle the mind. It doesn't compute when you look at modern wolves, right? So I've got a couple of videos talking about the wolf attacks from back in the day, and we're going to have a discussion about whether or not some hyenas got loose in the French countryside. But I'm going to drop the link in chat. Ladies and gentlemen, previous guests are preferred. And anybody with a real fucked up mic is just going to have to go. I don't, it's nothing personal. It's a show. And when we can't hear anything, it doesn't work. So that's what we're going to do. Now, at this point, I'm going to give you the big screen. You tell everybody what is the Academy of, what was it? The Academy of Sorcery? Is that what you called it? What you said? Yeah.
You cut out there. What's up?
What did you call it? The Academy of Sorcery? Isn't that a channel on YouTube? Or don't they have a channel?
Yes, it is. You can find. Yeah, you can find the Academy of Sorcery. It's ran by Brian Lovering, which is otherwise known as Fern Arlock. He's got Academy of Sorcery on YouTube. He's got Academy of Sorcery on Facebook. And I think he's got one on MeWe. I'm not sure. But I know it's on Facebook and YouTube.
All right. Giggity.
Yeah,
so you can't see this. This is the funny thing about my little viewership over here, right? I go to mention something like, "Oh, we're going to talk about lion attacks," and somebody's like, one of those folks in the chat be like, "Oh, that's Savo. We're going to talk about Savo tomorrow." Definitely talking about Savo. Talk about lion attacks. You got to talk about Savo. You might be right. We're going to get the Savo, and we're going to get the Jivaduon. All right, but I'm going to drop you backstage. We'll be back with you in just a minute. All right. I appreciate each and every one of you coming by and joining Sasquatch Shills. It's really the reason I run this whole channel. All the other silly stuff is just because I'm a dork and I kind of like nerdy things. So, you know, I'm going to sidestep for a little while and we'll be right back with you. If anybody has to go to the bathroom, roll one up, whatever you got to do, you'll get a few seconds right here. Just as soon as I find the right button.
Sorry. Good news, though. We're going to have to move the party somewhere a little bit more private, but you're all invited. Lorenzo will give you the details. Yeah!
Just getting started. I know that you want it, baby. Just get on it, ready to go. We know how to party. Pull up the Bacardi, feel it in my body. Put on a show. Yeah, let's go. Nah, we ain't never gonna slow down. How the girls looking hot like a hoe down. Everybody going up in my hometown.
What are the humans doing?
Aggressive sniffing begins. Chicken numb it.